kid from the bush who grew into a legend in his own lunchtime, former SAS soldier Michael J. Malone has seen it all. This is Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, hosted by the man himself, Mick Malone, along with Toby Malone, as they examine this long, storied career in the Australian Special Forces. Join us each week for behind-the-scenes insight, exclusive readings, and brutally honest truths from a true original. Welcome to Never Die Wondering. Welcome to episode 15 of Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, a podcast that explores the life and legend of Michael John Malone, OAM. My name is Toby Malone, Mick's son and co-host of this podcast series, joined by the man whose name is in the title, Mick Malone. G'day, Dad. How you going?
Good, mate.
Good. Yeah, we've been trucking through the book here, really sort of getting through a lot of these memories, this training memories that we've been talking about. And last week you talked about the med aid course that you had to do, and there was a lot of this extra training that you had to do to keep a sort of a full bottle as a soldier. Was there
Well,
anything that you
like I
found that
said,
you?
everyone in a patrol had to be fully qualified and everything else.
Yeah, and
Um,
did you continue this kind of training after the war was over,
yeah,
doing bits and pieces?
I became a patrol commander after the war, Lance Corporal,
Yeah.
patrol commander. So in New Guinea, getting ready to go back to Vietnam, I had a bunch of national servicemen in my patrol. So we had to do a lot of training and a lot of teaching in 1971, 72. And then they called the jam off. So it was a little bit different, a little
Hmm.
bit different.
Yeah, but you were the idea was that you were trying to get as much knowledge as you could in all these different areas. And as we'll find out later on in the book, you ended up spending some time. What were you diving? Was that one of the things that what was
Oh,
the area where they said to you, this isn't for you?
diving.
Yeah.
The legendary Jimmy Stewart, who led the diving teams, were out off Rottnest Island doing a subsurface swim on a buddy line. And and I was suck blowing. Suck blowing means you empty your gas bottle fairly quickly.
Right.
And we got back to the boat, and he just shook his head and he said, "Mate, you got to find something else to do. This is the field you should be in."
I
I
remember,
thought,
I remember you reused that line years later when you were coaching my cricket team when I was a kid, when with the kid who couldn't bowl the ball on the pitch, so you told his parents he should find something else to do.
that was classic.
Yeah, yeah. So lots of training that was going on, and we're going to get to a little bit more of that training today, talking about assault pioneer and demolition. So this sounds like it was fun get into this demolition stuff.
Yeah, it was fairly hairy, but we had to have our wits about us, and the safety officers always kept a good eye open,
Hmm.
and we didn't do anything too dramatic, not like later on.
Right.
Um, but it was an interesting thing where you learned how to place a charge, place a detonator in the well, run the cable back, fire, fire on, and bang. And then go down and check the damage and do it again and again with plastic explosives and TNT.
Hmm.
And then with Claymore mines, we Claymore was a magnificent piece of kit.
Right.
It was
Eh,
on four legs. So you stuck the legs in the ground. There's a thing on the front that says front towards enemy.
Right.
Unbelievably, when they first started to use these things, the Americans, some of them got it back to front and blew themselves away.
Right.
So they had to write front towards enemy on this. The shape charge is like that.
Yeah. Like a curve. Yeah.
700 ball bearings buried in plastic explosive.
Hmm.
Very, very capable thing.
Good. So
Anywho,
yeah, we'll get into the reading of the chapter before we give away all the secrets of all this. But there's lots of interesting things that come up, and we'll talk a bit about what we're reading afterwards. So today we'll be reading chapter 12 of Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael John Malone, OAM, published in 2024 by Imprimatur Books, Perth. This chapter, entitled Assault Pioneer / Demolition, covers pages 93 to 98 in the print edition. The e-book may have slightly different numbering, so follow from the beginning of the chapter. As we read, the body of the text will be read by author Mick Malone. Whenever we come across a footnote, we'll pause in the least disruptive way possible, and I will read the footnotes. And now, without further ado, Two Ranks on the Road.
Chapter 12, Assault Pioneer, Oblique Demolition, 1968. Back into it. Parking outside 3 Squadron Barrack Block, I caught up with various mates who had just arrived back. That night in the boozer wheel, caught up with what we'd been doing on leave, but early to bed for me. Dark 100 Ravelli, 2 ranks on the road in boots, green trousers and singlet, and away we went, pounding down the road and to the front gate, up the hill past Base Squadron and back down to the gym where the torture began. Same old PDIs led by Ray Heathcote, same old torture. I'd whacked on a few pounds over leave. Rhesus will do that to you, and was desperate to get back into my fighting weight of 85 kilos. It only took a couple of days, actually, and there I was, my trim, taut old self. The morning parade at 3 Squadron was interesting. A couple of blokes hadn't returned from leave and were listed as AWOL. 2 others were in the cells in the guard room for fighting in the boozer that last night. The duty officer was not amused when he came up to close up at 10 o'clock. These 2 miscreants had been punching the shit out of each other and decided to throw a few at the DO. Still remember that. Who was a hard sergeant who brooked no nonsense. He called the guard and they were locked up. They would front the CO next day when they got a serious kick up the arse and given 14 days CB.
Footnote, that means confined to barracks.
They were then exiled to the transport yard for 6 months before being allowed back to the squadron. I don't think we ever saw them again down in 3 Squadron. It was good to be back into it. At this stage in Vietnam, 2 Squadron were calling for reinforcements and quite a few blokes put their hands up. Bart Maverick, Kenny Bowen, G.D. Smith and Joe Rice.
Footnote, he was there when we arrived and welcomed us warmly. He did his 12 months at RTA'd. He has since died. R.I.P.
Mick Fagan and others were also keen to go early, not me. I had too much still to learn. Others from the Signal Squadron, such as Craig Possum Bramley and Kerry Curly Clark.
Footnote, Curly transferred to infantry on arrival and saw out the tour with the great Danny Wright.
Also deployed early. They weren't sure when they would get a call, but had to be DP1.
Footnote, Deployment Preparedness 1.
By the end of April, which included their pre-embarkation leave and the whole host of jabs and medicals, ANZAC Day came and two of them had gone. The rest waiting patiently. We gave the grog a serious nudge on Anzac Day, and we met a lot of the old and bold from Borneo and Malaya campaign. There were some serious legends amongst this lot. We marched proudly down St George's Terrace, to great acclaim of a big crowd, and then it was into the RSL for the gargle. A few hours later, there were buses provided to get us back to the barracks to continue on in the Diggers Boozer. By 1 May, some of the Rios to 2 Squadron had deployed, starting with Ken Bowen, first in February, and we wondered whether more would be needed before we deployed in February '69. We just hoped 2 Squadron would remain casualty free till then. In the meantime, training continued apace, with a solid range practice weekly, along with with predictable runs and gym work. We still had a bit to do to get to DP1, and this continued apace. There were still jabs we needed before we were scheduled to go to New Guinea for a couple of months of work-up training later in the year, and then, of course, pre-embarkation leave back to Mum's place in Sydney. A lot had to be finished between here and there, including a para jump up at Carrican Lakes near Gingin. We jumped in patrols, and after the jump, with me as forward scout, with the compass led by John Henry Coleman, a veteran of Borneo and Vietnam, with Patrol 2IC Anthony Leon Blackie Reed, we headed off on a certain bearing. Unfortunately, both of these fine soldiers elected to move on and would not be coming with us on our tour. Terrible shame, really, as they were both very good soldiers and highly regarded leaders of men. It was on this jump where my mate Johnny Davies refused to jump and was whisked away.
Footnote: if a qualified parachutist refuses to jump, he is immediately removed from the stick and the unit.
We were stunned and very disappointed that he had done this, but you never knew what goes through blokes' minds when the whips are cracking. It was a crying shame to lose a great mate like John, although I caught up with him 18 months later in the SAS Boozer at Nui Dat. He was then a digger in Seven Area.
Footnote: after the war, I caught up with him years later at Hollywood Hospital, where he was concierge at the Medical Specialist Centre.
The jump up at the lakes was followed by a stomp out to an RV point on a road junction. With compass and map in hand, off we went, very, very non-tack, as John Henry and Blackie talked the whole time. To come bursting out of the scrub and hit the road junction with a truck waiting was one of the thrills of my life, because I was not very good navigator at this stage. Although it got better as time went by. John Coleman was a complex character, wounded in Borneo, where he threw a white phos grenade and was severely burned in the explosion, and was now a very enthusiastic drinker. Blackie was a walking comedy act, a real lout with an Elvis hairdo. Both were very capable soldiers, and I couldn't wait to see active service with them. But alas, they moved on before that could happen. John had already done a tour of Vietnam with the AATTV and a Rio to 2 Squadron in the early '68. I think he was done. Blackie came to New Guinea with us on a pre-deployment training, but left the unit soon after RTU. He went off to PDF at Williamtown to pursue a career in the parachute field. He later became RSM there and was awarded an OAM. Great bloke, Blackie. He was tragically killed many years later when he crashed his motorbike. R.I.P. Blackie. The next course was the Assault Pioneer Demolition course conducted at Bindoon. We had a week in the classroom in close training area, identifying various parts, various equipment, TNT, ammonium nitrate, detonators, this detonation cord, and time fuse, FBT, or fuse blasting time. We also covered the use of Bangalore torpedoes.
Footnote: or as Rod Caswell knew it, Bangalore torpedo.
We laughed like drains for weeks over there. Oh, Rod. For removing barbed wire fences and other obstacles. Claymore mines are also to be used, as well as the various tools of the Pioneer: pick, shovel, crowbar, star pickets, and a dolly for banging them in. Sandbags, coils of wire, concertina wire, and the point jar used for breaking up ground. We saw a movie on this and a couple of World War II Pommy black and white films. on EOD and demolitions in general, which provided great background information. This was the first time I'd been exposed to explosives and an intro to claymores in infantry training, apart from Des Kennedy's morning bangs on the Carter. We occupied another campsite at Bindoon, closer to the demolition range, and spent half a day setting up our camp and boot and hoochies. The bait layer got a feed underway, and afterwards it was yarns around the campfire and various aspects of demolitions, mostly safety drills. The stretchers and sleeping bags were welcome, as it was a cold night and raining, and thankfully we only stood picket on the explosive truck, although it was hard to envisage some scoundrel coming all this way out here to rob an army camp, but it was what it was. Next day we were into it straight after breakfast. The rain had stopped briefly, thankfully, as we laid all our demolitions kit out on the ground and checked it before loading onto the truck for the range. We had no personal weapons with us at this stage on this course, so we were unencumbered, as it were. Still a bit cold and rainy, but we had our newly issued bush jackets and 2 or 3 layers of clothing. We started off on the pioneer side of the course, where we built a concertina fence along with star pickets and dollies. We filled sandbags for a weapons pit, sandbags turned inside out, of course.
Footnote: if they were inside, if they were inside out, the seams were on the inside, which made them doubly strong.
Whilst others took sheets of corrugated iron off the pile to commence work on the revetment required for the weapons pit. We worked like mad till lunch, which was delivered in hot boxes. In the afternoon, we built I and V shaped fighting pits in Bindoon's bauxite gravel, which was quite difficult digging, but we stuck to it. Not sure what those fighting pits had to do with SAS in the jungle, but we had to learn it. The next day, we would be starting the demolition part of the course, where the concertina fence to destroy with the Bangalore torpedo, and a few old car wrecks on the range to attack with PE and slabs of dynamite. We cut time fuses, prepared detonating cord, and got ready for the bangs from a safety bunker built at the rear of the range where all these things would be fired from. Once the safety officer ran the pencil over every charge and cable, we moved back to the firing point and called all clear. We then moved back down the hill to light the fuse. There were 6 slabs dotted around the range, fuses cut to various lengths. The longest ones were the furthest away to allow the flyer to get back to the bunker without running. The call came, firing.
Footnote: we didn't use the American fire in the hole jargon.
Which allowed each man to strike his match. Once lit, they all moved back up the hill to a bunker. Miraculously, they all went off together or close by, or close to. We then moved back down the range to inspect the damage. A small hole in the ground was the only evidence. Back up the hill again, getting a bit sick of this. First man up hooked up his charge to the firing box and on command called, fire on. Bang went the first explosive. Then the second charge, bang, and so on. Once all were fired and the cables unhooked, the safety officer went down the hill and inspected the damage. All clear, he called. We trundled down the hill to inspect the handiwork, very rudimentary. We had a couple more days of this stuff and then it was over. The last day was the deployment of claymore mines. We laid out a ring main of claymores on the range, which had a sign saying, front towards enemy.
Footnote: apparently the US Army came up with a bit of trouble in the early days of their introduction, with the soldiers setting them back to front, hence the sign.
The claymore was a very deadly weapon, and a patrol could deploy up to 12 of them laid in a bank, connected by det cord and fired by a clacker as we called it. It was a devastating jungle weapon, which would go on to great use in Vietnam, as I would discover later. The bank of claymores were joined by det cord and fired simultaneously with two clackers, one on each hand. The backblast danger area, BBDA, was vital to understand, although these were directional weapons with 700 ball bearings embedded in C4 explosive. The blast was still severe to the rear of up to 20 metres. When fired, they were devastating, shredding figure 11 targets all along the line. They were aimed with an open sight and had four legs to hold them upright. We then camouflaged them with leaves and sticks so they couldn't be seen by anyone walking down the track. Became our stock in trade in Vietnam, and many enemy were dispatched with them. Then it was time to fire the Bangalore, a metal tube filled with explosives with a primer in one end where the detonator was inserted. They threaded it through the fence. We retreated once again with the cable, and it was fired electronically from the bunker. Whoompa! Up she went, and we could hear pieces of shrapnel hitting the bunker after the all clear went down to inspect what was left of the fence. We did a couple more days of this and then packed up our camp, preparing to move back to Swanbourne. We were assessed by the instructors and were all told, passed. Some blokes were a little bit, how's your father, on their handling of explosives, but would be employed as SIGs or medics in patrols. Unloading the truck at Squadron Q store and the other truck carrying defence stores like corrugated iron, star pickets, wire, sandbags, had to be unloaded up at the main Q store. The explosives trailer was taken down to the explosives bunker down at the range where the ammo bloke did a full inventory. Once all this was done, we paraded at 3 Squadron for final words from the instructors and dismissed. Whilst I enjoyed these activities, it was always good to get back to the barracks, get the boots off and have a hot shower.
And that was chapter 12 from Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, as read by the author. So lots of activities that the tearaway from the bush in New South Wales would have loved.
Oh, mate.
You told 12-year-old Mick that he's going to get to blow up cars and fences and the like. Probably would have loved that.
No, I don't think he would have believed it,
Yeah,
but he may well
yeah. And there's plenty of stories in Hail Mary, the Creek's Up, which is coming out later on, which talks about how much of a tearaway you were in terms of getting into strife. So a lot of this,
have.
yeah.
Strife by middle name.
So it sounds like it was fun. The thing I'm always struck with when in this chapter is how kind of rudimentary a lot of these explosives felt. You know, things like the Bangalore torpedo, just almost improvised the first time it was done, and then it was probably seen as fairly effective. So it just carried on.
Yeah, yeah. No, we did a lot of improvised stuff. Um, the explosives people had come up with all sorts of ideas about using explosives, whether it was mines or whether it was bunker busting devices or what. But we kept out of all that stuff.
Hmm.
The engineers had a myriad of things they did, but we didn't because we were patrols in the jungle.
Yeah.
Carrying a claymore mine was about as bad as it got, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of this technology probably went back to the Second World War,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
and that you're still using that same kind of technology. And then I'm sure I mean, it's a lot more technologically advanced now, but it's the same fundamentals.
yeah. No, it was an exciting time, you know. Don't forget I'm only 20 years old.
Yeah, yeah. So the blokes
No
who
idea about much.
so the blokes who were not much chop at the demolitions, what were they doing to? to
Oh, just nervous.
no, right, yeah,
Got the old handshake going.
right.
But the instructors kept an eye on those blokes and said, right, you come over here and you can get the lunch or something.
Well, you need someone to get the lunch, but as long as they have other areas of expertise, that's
Yeah, they did.
yeah,
And that was the best bit about it. Everyone was able to cope with anything thrown at them.
yeah, yeah, that's
Otherwise,
right.
they got our berets.
Yeah. So the story about Johnny Davies refusing to jump, I mean that must have been a tough day.
Oh, especially for him.
Yeah. So he got up there and froze, or just
This stick, stand up. We all stood up and hooked on, and he sat there and just shook his head.
hmm,
And they said, you stand up. No. So they immediately realised that he wasn't going to jump. So they unstrapped him and moved him to the front of the plane and strapped him in. And
right.
that was it. That's the
Hmm.
last we saw.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, it makes a lot of sense that they wouldn't ask twice. You,
no, no, you never got a second chance.
yeah. And
They
do,
were
do
so cruel.
you know what was going through his head at the time? It was just
No, no,
fear.
we never spoke about it. I caught up with him in Vietnam later when he was with 7 Battalion, and I saw him. He was the concierge at
At
the
Hollywood.
medical centre at Hollywood. Very sharp dude, and
Mm.
saw him this ANZAC day. You met him, I think.
Oh yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I've been in contact with him a couple of times since.
Mm.
A really good bloke. Um, so I don't know what was going through his head.
Right.
Maybe he decided that was it. I'm not going to do this SAS stuff. But he was in a lot of action with 7 Battalion.
Right.
Um, that would have scared the pants off him.
Hmm.
But it is what it is, and that's what happened.
Yeah. 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 It's just interesting to say. I mean, like you say, you were only 20. You asking kids, not much older than
No,
my
he was
my
he was
son.
only, he was only 20.
Yeah, that's it. My son's nearly 16. I'm just trying. As he grows, I always just try to think of putting him a couple of years older into these situations. I just
Yeah,
can't quite
yeah.
picture it. It's astonishing to really
He'd be able to handle it.
maybe he would. And then yeah, in this there's one photo in this chapter. I'm holding it up here on the video podcast. You can see there's a photo of you as a younger man, wearing a Cottesloe Rugby League jumper.
Yeah.
And so that's the younger man we're talking about. So I guess when you're young and bulletproof, you can do anything.
Yeah. 6 feet tall and bulletproof.
So yeah, so it's no, it's a good photo, and that rugby jumper is a. I think I have it upstairs still. I think
You probably got it
I've got it
somewhere.
in a box somewhere. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
there. Yeah, it's good times. So, look, yeah, lots of really interesting training things, and really getting a sense that you're getting to become a full bottle on what's required before you head off to war. And then you, like you say, you would use a lot of these techniques uh, when the whips are cracking against the bad guys.
No, we did. We used most of the techniques.
And then you were using them later on in the counterterrorism training as well.
Yeah.
Were you explosive as well?
Well, that was a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, and we'll get to that in future chapters. But yeah, it feels a lot like incremental training where everything's being built on the last
Yeah.
thing you
Yeah.
learned. So that's
Slowly catch the monkey.
yeah, that's it. Well, that is all the time we have this week for Never Die Wondering. Join us next week for the next installment in our exploration of Mick Malone's career as we get into the 13th chapter of the book itself, entitled Patrol Course. If you have a copy of Two Ranks, read along with us. I've been Toby Malone, and thank you to Mick Malone for explosively joining us on this journey.
My pleasure, mate.
This has been Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words. For links to purchase your own copies of Mick's books, visit the show notes or mickmalone.com.au. This podcast is produced by Toby Malone, Joe Malone and Mick Malone, and engineered by Toby Malone. Theme music is The Happy Wanderer, the official SAS march, as reimagined by Cormac Malone and Meg Logue Malone. Yes, this is a family affair. This is a GM production in association with Imprimatur Books.